I wanted to bring you guys the stories out of California from people who are living it. Tony Katz today, and Kira Davis scheduled to be with us. Podcaster, radio host. She fills in for me and lives in Orange County. Has been watching from this bird's eye view, hoping things don't move south, but really digging into the horror show, the freak show that is the failure of policy that has been going on. So we're hitting the radio show. We'll get right to it. It is undoubtedly true that we need to get out of the United Nations. I'm not just talking about defunding certain organizations within the UN. I am talking about getting out. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. It is learned that UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Works Agency, this group that deals with Palestinian refugees, they absolutely, without question, as we already know, worked with Hamas, planned with Hamas the October 7th attack. We already know this, but they knowingly let Hamas infiltrate and indoctrinate children to pursue a path to terrorism. This from a UN Watch report reported by the New York Post. We are kidding ourselves with this idea that the United Nations provides us any value whatsoever. Those days are over. It is time for something new. I don't know. Did I say hello? I forget sometimes. Tony Katz today. What's going on, everybody? Find everything at TonyKatz.com. I want to dig on this story, and I will. And I think it was important to mention, but I have been, of course, discussing the fires in California, as many have, because it's not a story about the fires. It's talking about the destruction, and it is destructive. The photos, whole neighborhoods gone, whole towns gone. And then there's a whole conversation of what will ever be rebuilt in a society, California, that is so desirous of regulation. They won't learn their lesson. Well, people have been keeping an eye on what's going on, and one of those people is Kira Davis. You know her from the Just Listen to Yourself podcast. She, of course, you catch her here on this show regularly filling in, and Kira joins us right now, and it's good to see you. You're just down the road. I should say a little more than just down the road there. Yeah. In Orange County, but it's an incredible kind of view you have of being able to be very close, be connected, and still be able to be calm enough to be able to look into some of the details here. And you have been incredulous is not the word. I'm going to argue very focused on recognizing where the fault is. First things first, what is the latest on these fires that you know that maybe the rest of us don't?
Thank you, Tony. Well, nothing is contained with the Pacific Palisades fire, which is the major fire that you guys have been seeing broadcast. There are 5 fires. 2 are the major ones you're seeing on your TVs. Eaton Fire, which is in Altadena, Pasadena area, and the Pacific Palisades fire, which is what you're seeing by the ocean. That fire is 0% contained, over 17,000 acres currently burning. I just got off the line to the service there, and the northern flank is igniting and pushing further, and the western flank is calming down, but still 0% contained. Eaton Fire is still burning out of control. And right now we are monitoring, as we speak, Tony, the fire approaching Mount Wilson in Los Angeles, which is a major communications hub for the greater Los Angeles area. Many of our cell and radio towers are up there. Last I checked, and I may be checking my phone as we talk, last I checked, aerial support was incoming. As you can imagine, Tony, that is of top priority in the Los Angeles area. So
you're talking about cell towers, you're talking about communications for emergency management, a whole host of things. As we're watching this play out, I asked you the question yesterday. It was via text. I'll share with everybody if you don't mind. Yeah. Where's the top story on the blame here? And you literally wrote back Sophie's Choice. right? That there's no good answer here. So let's go through the 1-2 punch in the three levels of leadership. The head of the fire department there, who was more focused on DEI than seemingly anything else, as the argument
Christy
goes.
Crowley.
Karen Bass, who is the mayor of Los Angeles, and the governor,
Supposedly.
Gavin Newsom, start at that firefighter level, at that chief level.
Kristen Crowley is our Los Angeles Fire Department chief. Look, I'm not going to mince words. She absolutely is a DEI hire. She's LGBTQ. You can go and find videos on X floating around right now of her bragging happily that her top priority for LA Fire Department was to diversify, not to protect and serve, to diversify. So now we're looking exactly at the consequences of choosing to prioritize diversity over service, over merit. So she's been an absolute failure. Watching her, by the way, Tony, the mayor of LA, I keep saying our, but I'm not in LA, but the mayor of LA wasn't even on the continent yesterday until noon yesterday, a full 24 hours after the fire started. So the fire chief had to take her place at the first press conference that they did yesterday. And she looked weak, confused, and scared, as did literally, Tony, every other person up there. I have never seen anything like it. So I don't even need to get into the Karen Bass stuff. I mean, she's been absolutely neutered. But yeah, it starts at the top, Tony. It starts at the top. And there's just so much incompetence. It really is hard to sit here and break it down in just a few minutes. We are overwhelmed.
Let me talk a little bit about the incompetence of Karen Bass. Talking to Kira Davis, California resident, Just Listen to Yourself podcast and radio host. This was the press conference that Karen Bass, the first one she got to. I want you to hear it for yourself.
Medicine, a bag packed and ready. Again, this is an active situation. And conserve water to the extent that you can. We want to make sure that we are ready if we need more water. But make no mistake, Los Angeles will rebuild stronger than ever. Right now, if you need help, emergency information, resources, and shelter is available. All of this can be found at URL.
Oh my. She didn't know the website. She's clearly reading from this piece of paper without an ounce of understanding of what's happening. Find it at URL, which is where she's supposed to read the website off and explain to everybody where they can get information. So when you talk about incompetence, Kira, this is what you're talking about.
Shades of Joe Biden, right? I mean, just really, what? This is the mayor of one of the most populous cities in the world. This is the mayor of one of the greatest cities in America. What? When I have been, you've seen me, Tony, and you've heard me, I have been raging about Karen Bass for the last 48 hours, calling on her to resign. And I've been getting a lot of responses from people, liberals, saying things like, what's she going to do anyway? What could she have done anyway to be there? It's not like she can pick up a shovel and go fight the fires. You're right. Leaders don't get on the front lines necessarily and with a hose and start putting out water, but leaders lead. And guess what? You can't lead if you're not in the city you're supposed to be leading. You can't do it that way. Second of all, when you see Ron DeSantis out in front of his people during hurricanes, you feel confidence emanating from that guy, right? It's oozing. Yes, he's not on the front lines, but he's telling you where you need to go. He's giving you information. He's appearing strong and confident, and that makes people feel a little bit more at ease. That's what a leader does. We don't have any of those people. And in fact, when Karen Bass and Newsom have taken to the airwaves briefly, they've had nothing but blame, really, for the citizens for not getting out fast enough. Newsom blamed the citizens for not evacuating quickly enough when they were told to. Excuse me, Governor Newsom, who's going to save their homes? You're not there. The fire department isn't there. You've slashed it by thousands of employees and millions of dollars. These people are left to their own devices. They've been abandoned for years. They already know this. So they're already in the mindset of we have to protect ourselves. Screw you. How dare you abandon these people and then accuse them of being wrong or somehow ridiculous because they want to save what's left of their home. I'm sorry, Tony, as you can tell, I'm very emotional, but this is an incredibly frustrating time.
Talking to Kira Davis and her dogs are right there in California right now as we speak. A large part of this has been a conversation about Gavin Newsom and specifically how water has not been kept. It has not been trapped. The water that comes off the mountains, it was not utilized in a way, allowed to run off into the Pacific. Certainly questions about how in the world do you have the Pacific there and not have water to fight these fires. You talk about blame that Newsom is putting on the people. How do the people explain their votes for people like Newsom, for Bass and others when we're clearly aware, as you are discussing, how these types of policies have been going down and the danger they kind of knew that they were in?
Tony, give me 1 second. Why don't you pick this up? I'm going to go put that dog out because what's happening is crews are trying to clean up what's been going on. She's
I get it. The crews are cleaning up. The dogs are losing their mind. You're going to handle that. Yeah, she's actually in it. She is actually in it. Now, I will admit that she is not in the place where there's a fire around the corner. And if you've never been in a place where there's a fire around the corner, let me tell you, it is something to watch and to witness. I have certainly had fires come close. I have never experienced what these people are experiencing. We'll take the quick break and more with Kira Davis on how these people voted for these policies and then are unstunned by the policies. It's coming up next. Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz. No problem whatsoever. I'll bring Kira back in. No, don't be. Live radio and live stream is the best. But taking a quick break from radio right now, but we're still on the live stream. So going at it. Remember, I spent 6 years. How else did we meet except my time in California? And taking the drive down Mulholland, right? And Laurel Canyon, Topanga Canyon. I love those drives. I don't miss California at all. Yeah. Being in Indiana, I miss those drives. Those are some incredible moments, even when, just trying to get the career started, as broke as can be, but just joy in driving with the family, driving with my wife down those streets. But you drove down Mulholland and you were like, if a fire starts, everybody here is dead. Dead. This is a 2-lane street, one in each direction. Never mind just the fire. Nobody's getting out. No one's going to evacuate. My point to you, Kira, is that they've known it for years and they've just lived with it. Do they get the right to be angry with Governor Newsom now?
Sure. Yeah. You always have your vote. You always have the right to be angry, even if you've made terrible choices. And let's not let the California media off the hook here, Tony. I was saying earlier to someone today, look, a lot of crap has been going on, but how is the average Californian supposed to know? Their own media doesn't ask these questions. Our main sources here are local outlets and then the LA Times, Sacramento Bee, San Francisco Chronicle, those places. They're all in the tank for Democrats. They're all bought and paid for. They're all sycophant media. They don't report the real issues that are going on in California. Everything's framed in bad orange man versus the rest of us. So no one's getting real information here outside of what people like you and I can provide for people. So obviously, it's not just a matter of, you get what you vote for. A lot of people are voting for something different. They think they're voting for something different. Yeah. And now is the time for the GOP to get out there and explain this mess and explain why this is happening to people and tell them why their vote matters.
So that's a theory, a belief that the devastation here can lead people to think in a different way. Have you seen any proof of that? I mean, to the extent that social media is proof, you seen proof of that?
Yes. not just social media, anecdotally, talking to my friends, my family, people in Los Angeles, in the midst of the fires right now, people who don't even line up with me politically. Tony, I cannot express to you the level of over it everyone is here in California. These fires have completely burned away the last of our politeness, completely burned away the last of our hopefulness about our politicians, completely burned away the last of this fake air of diplomacy that we've been living under for all of these years. Nobody has any reserves left here, Tony. No one has any. It isn't just these fires. It isn't just these fires. We have been under duress for years here. I come on your show twice a month for years since you've been in Indianapolis to talk about the chaos in Southern California and California in general. The homelessness, the border, the fentanyl situation, the meth heads, the murders, the rapes, the theft rings. We are a national laughingstock. We've been burning for a lot longer than the last 48 hours. And people have had enough. So this fire really is just the flaming cherry on top of this crap sundae that we've been being fed for the last at least decade in this state.
So as we bring back the radio show, Tony Katz today, Kira Davis has been on a roll. I don't worry. I'll share it with you. Regarding kind of where Californians are, Kira Davis, the Just Listen to Yourself podcast radio host, you hear her here filling in for me from time to time, and how Californians have had enough. And she was making the point that even if they voted for Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass, they have dealt with much, and they're exhausted. There is no more politeness. I believe that's the terminology used left, which is something I would very much like to see. I guess the question is, how does it manifest? But before we get there, Gavin Newsom, how are these people going to get water? Well, the local people are going to figure it out. Literally threw up his hands. Did the governor of California? Local people will figure it out. I can't believe Donald Trump is blaming me. I have a lot to say, but I won't. This is a conversation of policy, and you know this is a desert. You know that these fires can happen. They have happened. I have lived through them, and so have you. Certainly not like this. I never lived through anything like this, witnessed anything like this. Is the better terminology. Has there been anything that has been, even though delayed, put into place to try and get these fires under control, Kira?
No, in fact, it's been the exact opposite, Tony. In 2024, we voted to build more reservoirs here in the state. As you know, this is a quote drought state. And so we voted to build more reservoirs and do more proactive mitigation. And we have not built any reservoirs. And in fact, during our rainy season last year, we had record rains, which was, again, that was climate change. It's always climate change. We had a rainy season last year, water pouring into the ocean. We did not have the reservoirs for it. So fire is fire. You can't change fire, but you can enact policy that protects your citizens and prepares for this event. Again, Tony, I want to remind you that we had 2 full days prior to the first spark going up of warning. And they were telling us, this is the firestorm of the century. This is the wind condition of the century. Karen Bass, for 2 days, sat in Ghana before she tried to get home. Gavin Newsom, I don't even know what he was doing. I know you saw him yesterday, Tony, but guess what? He wasn't down here because he cared about us. He wasn't down here because he was worried about us. He just happened to be in Coachella with President Joe Biden. Remember that guy? We still have a president, by the way, you guys. His name is Joe Biden. And he was there too. And they were dedicating priorities, dedicating 2 national monuments to the Native American tribe there or something. They just happened to be in the area. So they decided to divert emergency traffic so they could come on down to Southern California and very helpfully give a photo op that nobody wants, nobody needs, and does nothing but make us hate Gavin Newsom anymore. That man's political career is over. You mark my words, he will never be president of the United States. Yesterday, his career went up in flames.
I want to believe you. I would very
You
much
believe
like
me.
to believe you.
It's done. It's
Kira, I
done.
live in the real world. I don't believe any of this stuff.
Well,
I
guess
don't
what,
think
Tony?
that
Guess
people
what?
learn.
Guess who's mad right now? Kira Davis. So that means it is my personal mission to make sure that man never curses America with
The
his
question
presence
before us, though, Kira, is whether or not the progressives who voted for him, and this is what we were discussing just earlier during the break, whether or not they have learned their lesson. That's the only way this changes. Has there been, you make the argument that people have said is enough is enough, and you're also making the argument that Republicans need to capitalize on this. In your view, how do they do that?
You got to do, I think a great example of this, I'm so glad you asked this. A great example of this is what the citizens of the South Side of Chicago did and what the Chicago Republican Party did when the migrant crisis was, it's still ongoing there. But during the heat of that, when people were being pushed out of their homes and schools on the South Side to welcome these migrants in, they were getting very upset. And so what they started doing was every time the mayor or the city had a press conference, they would schlep over there, set up their stuff, and then they would do a press conference immediately following it. And they would unexplain all the weird stuff that the city tried to pull, and then they would explain what's going on. And that might sound simple, but it's a huge, huge aspect. The problem here, Tony, in California, and really in a lot of America, is that people have not been allowed to hear the explanations for why their votes result in this. And I think we both can agree that media has been very biased and has censored information.
Are they
that
still being? Do you feel the California media is not giving a full, detailed report on what is happening and what policies have failed in the moment when they're needed?
I am not willing to make any declarations right now, but I will say that yesterday, this morning, these days are running together. This morning at the press conference, the LA County press conference, for the first time ever, I heard the California press ask real questions to Mayor Karen Bass, and they were pressing her to answer questions regarding preparation and all of the stuff you and I have been talking about. Never seen that before. So I hope that this indicates a turning point. I will say, Tony, I've never seen people this angry.
They've lost everything. There are people who've lost everything. And part of the problem here is that, well, I still got about a minute, Kira, is that there are people who lost everything who didn't do anything wrong. They didn't vote for this. They didn't want this. They've just been living their lives in California like they have for 63 years. And they've lost everything. If you could, just a moment on the devastation.
Look, as you say, Tony, fire disaster, it's bipartisan. It affects all of us. It doesn't go after blue or red. And that is why it's so important for us to be out there explaining to people what's going on, explaining the process of our government, explaining what their votes mean, because their votes aren't partisan, really. Their votes are related to what their lives are, where they are. And that's the message we need to be putting out there in this time of crisis. This is a time that can bring unity. So I hope that there are more voices out there reminding people, like, this is why this has happened, but we can prevent this.
Kira Davis, stay right there. Don't let me lose you. Just hang out for just one more minute. I will admit, as I said earlier, you never let a crisis go to waste. That Rahm Emanuel line, and it's the part two, because you can do things you didn't think you could do before. You do things you weren't able to do before. The failures that we're seeing are indeed political, and the failures that we're seeing are indeed partisan, and they come from an absolute failure to hire qualified people and to be qualified people. If you can move that message, you have a better chance of survival going down the road. And I mean, look at the fires, quite literal survival. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz today. Producer Landon, I'll catch up with you in just a second, man, so don't worry about a thing. Kira comes back to us before we wrap up the stream. I wasn't planning on doing a live stream. I certainly wasn't planning on having bad hair today either, Kira, but here we are. I like conceptually the concept of utilizing this as a way of saying it can be better. You can just get something better. You can have competence back. This DEI thing has failed you. This woke thing has failed you. This feel good nonsense has failed you. Policy, practicality, common sense, expertise. These things do matter, and I don't think that's being an opportunist. Rather, I think that's being rational. You are going to get responded to, Kira Davis, with the following. But abortion. That's if I'm lying, I'm dying. You know that's exactly what you're going to get responded to. That's going to be the key response. How do you rebut that?
Oh, LA's burning to death. How do I respond to that? Yeah. This is just another symptom. What you just said is another symptom of what America has been going through for the last at least 4 years, or maybe longer, during the Obama administration, which is the idea that it's distractions, right? It's the idea that these are our priorities: diversity, equity, inclusion, making sure that some Americans don't have more than others. And the result, we are looking at the results of that. There is just no other explanation for this. We are looking at the results of weakened, feckless leadership that has been taken out of the hands of merit and put into the hands of appearance and racism, frankly, and sexism. And we're paying the cost for that. So those people who want to yell at me and talk about, well, what about abortion care? What about abortion? That's a distraction. Abortion is for you and your state to decide at your state level. By the way, that's what the Supreme Court did for you. So if you want to enshrine the right to murder babies, you go for it. It's probably a little part of the reason why Southern California is on fire right now, if you ask me. But if that's what you want to do, go for it. Some of us have other priorities than murdering innocent children, like saving the people who are here.
Right. It's a focus on the subjects that don't matter and needing to focus on the subjects that do matter. But really, it's about the idea of doing two things at once. And what we see from progressives is that maybe you can't do two things at once because they can't recognize that the second thing matters too. If you're Gavin Newsom, you were the mayor of San Francisco, California, we heard from Chuck DeVore earlier, a former assemblyman, and talking about how the ecosystem there in Northern California, very different than what you get in Southern California, and how the weather works and how the forestry works and how you have to maintain and focus. It's not like Gavin Newsom has never seen this before. It's that he had to have somewhere, he made the choice that one thing matters and one thing doesn't. And I can't do two things at the same time. That seems to be the biggest failure here, an unwillingness to do two things at the same time.
Yeah, I think you're onto something here. Yes, an unwillingness. It's an unwillingness at the leadership level to do two things at the same time. It's ignorance at the rank and file level that you can do two things at the same time. I'll give you for instance, this is on the conservative side, actually. On X today, a lot of conservatives have been arguing back and forth about Trump and Greenland. And there are some conservatives, I call them the professional contrarians, who are upset with Trump bloviating about Greenland. They're saying it's a distraction. We need him to focus on the things he said he was going to do for us. And my point is, President Trump is an adult and he can walk and chew gum at the same time. He can be concerned about, and by the way, he's not concerned about Greenland. He's concerned about Russia and China, everyone. So inform yourselves about what's really going on there. But he's not just concerned about Greenland. He doesn't have to be just concerned about Greenland because he's a thinking human being who can carry two ideas in his head at the same time. So he can talk about Greenland, and he can be worried about the fires in California, and he can be worried about the economy and the border. All of this works together, Tony. All of this is the same story. It's the same topic. When President Trump says America first, he means everything. He doesn't just mean the border or the economy. He means all of it.
When Kira's talking about Greenland being about Russia and China, and this is a little bit about the concept of over the horizon. How do you keep an eye on your enemies? When we lost Kabul and the Air Force base there in Afghanistan, we lost the ability to keep eyes on certain problems and certain issues in certain places. And so, as a logistical point of view, Greenland offers a lot of value. Kira Davis here from the Just Listen to Yourself podcast. The next couple of days, the winds died down a little bit yesterday. They seem to be picking up, and there's talk about how they're going to pick up into the evening hours and for Friday as well. Not to date the video we're doing here, but c'est la vie. Nothing's contained, as you discussed. Nothing is contained. So that leads us to, if these fires pick up, where are the areas that people are concerned about next?
I will say, I should say this, the Silmar fire, which is a foothill fire, that has been 10% contained. And then there was a fire that broke out in Hollywood Hills last night. That was a really scary one. And they did throw everything on that and contained it. I think that was arson. I think we're going to find out that was definitely arson. We're watching patches light up on live TV. So,
and we should be clear, a whole bunch of this could be arson after the fact. We still don't know what started the Palisades fire, but this absolutely, that is a real issue. But it doesn't change the fact that California doesn't have any skill set to fight these things. Right. But that arson thing is not a throwaway line. It very well could be.
It will be. You mark my word, it will be arson in one of these spots. In an original fire, I'm going to stake my reputation on this, that it's probably a homeless encampment of some type or a homeless fire. We have these fires every day in Southern California. And so this is what we were expecting. And then when the fires light up, everyone, a lot of people don't know this, but when fires light up, it brings out the fire bugs. So the weirdos out there that are waiting for disasters and have this weird thing in their mind, setting fires satisfies something in them. They love the chaos. It encourages them. So they go out and set more while the city's in chaos. So we're dealing with that too. It's all of it. Again, when Trump says America first, he means all of this, because all of this stuff is connected. It's arson, it's poor mitigation planning, it's lack of leadership, it's homelessness, fentanyl, dry conditions, the climate, it's all of it.
This is the connectivity is that if indeed you're seeing this at homeless encampments, what policies led to an increase in homelessness and an acceptance of homelessness, and that's really where the rubber meets the road. And
let me interrupt you there, Tony.
Go ahead.
Let me say this. This is really important. I'm keeping an eye on my feed while I talk to you. If these fires hit those comms towers on Mount Wilson, our emergency services will go down in most places in Los Angeles. This is so very serious. And again, a leader has planned for that, right? You're not scrambling to protect your comms towers. The Getty, Tony, the Getty is locked down. The Getty, a lot of people text me, is the Getty okay? If you've ever been to the Getty, if you've never been there, you should go. And one of their things that they'll do is they'll explain their fire mitigation strategy to you, and it's really incredible. They have incredible technology. I promise you, the Getty's never burning down.
Talking about the Getty Museum,
the Getty Museum,
spectacular spot. The Getty Villa, which is in the Palisades, there near Malibu. That, at least, I know it burned on the grounds, but I think the villa itself is still standing.
Fine, they do mitigation efforts. They know how to handle that. So you would think that the leaders, knowing we live in drought conditions 24/7, knowing how vital those towers are, you would think that they would have Getty Museum like preparation plans, in place for if and when fire goes up there. So it will be even more serious if those towers go out. We're very nervous about that. It's just, this is a policy collapse from top to bottom that you are witnessing in real time.
By the way, Mount Wilson, you're talking about the Eaton fire,
yes.
Being able to get to that. The Eaton fire right now has 10,590 acres that are in flames and 0% containment. Mount Wilson is to the north of this, just to the north of this. And your conversation about a backup plan, your conversation about what comes next will lead to a much further and much more detailed conversation about institutional failure. I would have to assume that even California, if just based on the behest of the federal government, they've got backups to these communication systems. Because if I know you're shrugging, but I have to believe it. Because if not, the amount of people who are going to die is absolutely through the roof. The argument that you made was that there is a sea change that can come. If we take a look at Israel on October 8th, the sea change came at that moment. All the people who are willing to at least try and find some peace with Gaza, create an opportunity for Palestinians. Those people who lived in the Gaza envelope, they're the ones who got killed. They're the ones who were tracked for 3 to 5 years. They're the ones where Hamas knew exactly where they lived, exactly where the weapon stashes were, and they were going to kill the people on the left side of town and kidnap the people on the right side of town. And these were the people who were driving into Gaza to bring them to work. The point I bring to you is that on October 8th, everybody in Israel said, okay, we've done everything we can. We're done here. We don't ever want to hear their name again. We don't want to hear about their problems again. We're done trying to play nice with these people. Your argument is this is the moment where Californians are done trying to play nice with these people. That only happens through strong questioning. You said you've seen some questioning take place from the media. Is it taking place from the Hollywood folk who have had their houses burned to the ground? I'm not joyous that their house burned to the ground, but are they finally saying something? Because culture moves politics.
Right. Now, no word so far. And to be fair, most of those people are still running for their lives. I mean, they're like everyone else, packing up. And maybe they have more money to do it, but it doesn't mean that they're not running for their lives. So a lot of those people are still figuring out their lives, but there's been a lot of celebrity messaging online. Look, I don't understand the celebrity class, to be honest with you. I'm not quite sure how they work, because some of them, I would venture to say a lot of them feel like we feel are frustrated, but a lot of them are like Karen Bass. They just have handlers. They're just robots. And so they just say what they're supposed to say. They go where they're told to go. So I don't know if the celebrity class is going to say anything, but who cares? I think in November 5th, we proved that we don't give a shit about the celebrity class. They can go screw themselves. I'll keep going. I don't know. I guess, but they get, well, and not to be crude. Not to be crude, but folks, here's what you're hearing from Kira Davis. What I just told you, right, a little while back, which is that we're done with polite. That's what I'm seeing here, Tony. We're done with polite. I swear to you, I have never seen it like this.
I hope you're right. I want you to be done with polite.
We're done, but the way that the culture shifted November 6th, that's what's happening here in California now. So you just pointed to Israel. We just went through it here. Canada's about to go through it. I'm seeing patterns here.
I think that pattern goes back to Malay in Argentina. I think it goes back to the disgust with Sir Keir Starmer in the United Kingdom. I haven't seen yet a real response to the outrageous lockdowns of Australia and New Zealand, but I am certainly curious about it, whether or not there's going to be some response to that. But we're going to keep our eyes on California. We're going to have you back. We're going to keep thinking about you. Stay safe, stay well. I know the fires are a good distance from you, but stuff like this gets real ugly real quick.
We're watching the winds. I just want to say, we've been asking people to pray for us. A lot of people have been saying, what can we do? We say pray. And I know like some progressives are always like, oh, thoughts and prayers. But we say pray. But when people like me say pray, we're not saying that as something passive that you can do. We believe that that's an active thing that you can do. And I'll say, Tony, the winds were predicted to be raging at 100 miles per hour for 3 days straight. And last night, they completely calmed down. And here in Orange County, they're very calm. We've supposed to have been windy all day. It hasn't been that way. Winds are just starting to pick up now. So I believe your prayers are helping. please continue to pray for us and continue to check on your friends and family here.
It sure as bloody heck can't hurt. That's Kira Davis, the Just Listen to Yourself podcast, radio host extraordinaire. I'll talk to you soon, Kira. We'll catch up. Be good. There she goes, Kira Davis. I appreciate you guys sticking around. It wasn't the plan. I had pre-recorded some stuff on radio because I knew I was gonna get to this. And I'll tell you, as Bill says, totally arson. I don't think you're wrong, and certainly, as Kira mentioned, others have mentioned, there seems to be a case of this, and there's this kind of interesting argument that, you know, they kind of ginned up. Oh, the winds are here. This is gonna be dangerous fire weather. Was that kind of like egging people on to engage a self-fulfilling prophecy? I think noticing that there are going to be wind shifts and going to be patterns and issues and conditions. I don't know how you don't talk about those things. The issue here is that California is not prepared, and California chose to be unprepared. That's the part. Chose to be unprepared. And if voters don't do something about it, they deserve what they get. And in the same way, I believe that in friends of mine, whether it's Kira or other friends that I have, at this moment, you got to ask yourself, what exactly are you doing? Well, we want to try and save California. That's fine. When you can't, all of a sudden you realize Atlas Shrugged is a really good book. When you can't, you might just have to let it burn. Now, I don't want that. Innocent people, good people who've done nothing wrong or suffering like you wouldn't believe. I want them to do what Kira is saying. I want them to be feeling the way Kira sees this happening, that the change is here and they're not putting up with this anymore. Man, do I want that to be the case. I have no faith that it will be, but I'd like to see it. I'd really like to see it. Bill, I appreciate the comment. Guys, I appreciate you coming back for more of the live stream. We're going to do more. That's all there is. I appreciate you being here. Find everything I do over at TonyKatz.com. You can go to the Twittix there at Tony Katz, Instagram, Tony Katz, Facebook, Tony Katz Radio, and be supportive of all the things. Really do appreciate it. Really do appreciate you. And I will catch you next time, guys. Take care.